Slavy Cabrera and Petr Kovář, and we all we four are as good as Marcela, so I guess we should cover that, but it could be a bit shorter, but as we already learned, there is kind of a bit less communication between users and working groups, and between working groups generally. So we can then in the end continue the questions and answers, or if you would like to ask for anything, just go ahead. This talk is about the working groups, which is called Env and Stack, and this is where this group originated. This is a picture from Matt's talk last year, the last vlog. The main idea about the new Fedora Next concept is to have some Fedora core, and above the core, or the system as we have used until now, or as I understand it, there should be something more. This concept shouldn't change things. It should just add some new things to existing working product, and this is actually where we fit into Fedora project. We had quite tough time to define what we should do, because other groups usually have some product that they would like to develop, but we don't have anything like that. So we just came with the motto or the vision, which is that we would like to be Fedora. We would like to make Fedora to be the preferred platform for software development and develop. Okay, this is something weird, but okay. Well, we would like to support languages and application stacks generally. And if we talk about development and software developers, we can include both groups of developers. I mean, developers of Fedora itself, which are maintainers and other contributors, and as well users that use Fedora and develop applications on Fedora. So we would like just to make things better for them, and not make them not leave to Ubuntu or other Linux distributions. Okay. So these are pretty much the main links where you can find information about this working group. We usually meet every Wednesday in the afternoon in Europe or morning in the US. So you are really welcome to join, because we want to communicate with you, and we would like to learn what do you have problems with, where we can help. And also this is a special request for other working groups to give some feedback, and also requests for us, what they need from us. This is what I feel is missing right now, communication. It was already said yesterday, and I totally agree with it. Okay, and these are main areas of interest. What are we actually thinking about? I need to admit that this is not our work all the time. Well, some systems were developed by other people than people in group, but this is perfectly fine. We are a collaboration team, right? So this is actually these are actually projects that we are trying to get involved in. We are trying to at least follow, or we actually do something in it. We also do things in the end. So let's go through them one by one. Well, automation, this is problem in Fedora generally and already for quite a long time. We do many things manually. Well, if I have the package, I need to build it, I need to submit to Koji, to body, then I don't know, collaboration or integration with Mozilla. Everything is now manual process, and this is what should be changed. And the first early bird of this change could be the package reviews that have been made manually. There are still, but things are slowly changing. And Env and Stano had a great talk yesterday about the new system which is being developed and which should automate the package reviews. So this is one example of what we would like to do, and we would like to do something similar in other parts of the package maintenance or, I don't know, infrastructure, whatever. Another example is related to testing, but not only. I would say I would like to see the task pattern, which is the system developed by Fedora QA, to be used not only for executing tasks, test tasks, but generally for executing many kinds of tasks that we need to automate. It is written really generally, has done pretty much very good work, and he had also presentation about task pattern on Wednesday. So I guess if anybody missed it, you can find it on YouTube and you'll learn more about it. What is our part in this project? Actually, I'm looking to integrating RPM drill into task pattern, which is a great tool developed by at Santiago, and this tool should or already does pretty good work in regarding the checking the RPM result, how the RPM looks in the end of the build, and it can, for example, say if a build log contains some suspicious information. It brings warnings or errors if scriptlets look suspicious, and does much, very great job, similar to RPM lint, but it is not only focused on spec file and packaging, it is also focused on the RPM itself, content and so on. So this is the test that should be part of the task pattern and should be actually run for every build in Koji and Copper. So this is what we actually what we are looking at. And as I said, if you see any thing what can be automated, you can either try doing on your own, or just talk to us and we will try to figure something. Yeah, I already mentioned Copper. I guess most of us or most of you know what Copper is. It's a new build system. It is something like Koji, but it is based on different principle. And also there was a talk on Wednesday by Mirek, which is who is actually a developer of Copper. And so this is something what already works, but there are some things missing to be better usable for the playground repo, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide. For example, signing of packages is not fixed yet. Sorry, I didn't start.
So you said it's widely used. Do you guys have numbers? Like how many repos that have been built or whatever?
Well, I'm not sure if there are some, but I don't have any numbers, sorry.
So we don't know about active projects, but there's right now 1,500 open copper projects. But we don't really follow the activity. That's something University was asked to get.
Yeah, so we use copper for building OpenStack like as on the same level as Koji. So we build Fedora in Koji and EPEL distros in copper. So it's like part of our workflow. So it's definitely used.
Yeah, so I will just repeat what was said in the audience. The question was how many packages or how big, how much the copper is used. The answer was that there are 1,500 active projects, and another comment was that copper is well, quite useful in the whole infrastructure. Okay, so this is an example how it works in practice. It can be used in DNF directly. The DNF includes a plugin for copper, and you can actually list the active coppers, well, the repositories of any user, and well, you can basically install the repository using this plugin, and then after the repository is installed, you can install the packages from the repository as usually done. And the playground repo, I already mentioned, this is also based on the copper. And the idea behind the playground repository is to have some set of packages or set of coppers that are, well, somehow tested. This is right now. This is question what tested means. We already talked about it, and the decision is we definitely want to stay. Well, we definitely want to keep the legal questions the same as we care about, well, in Koji, but some other stuff like packaging guidelines could be a bit broken. This means we would like to allow users that cannot put their package into Koji and proper Fedora to build somehow and be usable by other users if these packages follow the legal guidelines. And this is what the playground repo should serve for. So there also should be some plugin for DNF, which means we also need to wait for DNF to be the default installer. So I guess this can be, I hope it will be changed for the feature for Fedora 22. Yeah, and I will pass the mic to Slavek, who will tell you something more about continuous integration.
Great. Hey everybody. So, about continuous integration. To set this term straight, this is not continuous integration in the traditional sense. It's more like continuous integration on the distro level and thoughts and ideas how we could approach it. So, we have like sort of 3 projects that we're starting with. First of them is called Koshchei, and it's actually not developed by me, which is great. I just get to talk about it and get the credit. It's actually developed by that guy over there, Michal Šimáček. So thank him when you actually start using it and find out how great it is. So how it works? Koshchei basically is based on the idea that we need to be able to find out that new packages, like updated packages, broke something at the time when they got to rawhide, for example. So the idea is that you add a package to be tracked by Koshchei, and Koshchei then waits for the package dependencies to be updated, and when they are updated, it rebuilds the package whose dependency was updated. So if the build is okay, then everything is fine. If the build fails, then you will see basically Koshchei will show you what dependencies in the build root change. So you have pretty good level of like knowing what broke your build. So it's really good for this. I actually have a demo right here. I'll try to. Okay. So thanks. I have an assistant right now.
The developer system?
Oh, that's no. Sorry. Yeah, it's a mic assistant. Not this. Oh, no. Thanks. So this is what it looks like. I actually prepared just a few open tabs so that I don't actually have to click on that. So this is the front page. You can actually notice that Mikhail stole Koji scheme, right? It says Fedora build system. This is not really Fedora build system. Okay, we'll redo it eventually. It's okay, thanks. So this is basically just a summary, a list of packages that Koshche is tracking right now. And what you can see here is that Untunit, for example, is failing. To make this more clear, we actually created sort of groups of packages that in Fedora should basically map to maybe like 6. So like Python 6 should have their own group, Ruby 6 should have their own group, etc., etc. So these are the groups that we have right now. The packages are assigned to groups. And so I work with Python, so this is the Python group. So you can see that right now we have these 5 packages tracked and Python 3 is failing. It's actually because of OpenSSL, it's not our fault, right? Yeah, and so if you click on Python 3, you'll see something like this, which basically shows you the dependencies that changed in build root since last successful build. So this is actually not very accurate at this time because the first build failed. So it would actually like list mostly all dependencies. So I really tried to find a package that would have successful build and then one that failed, but I didn't manage to do that before the presentation. So just question.
Curious question. Python build depends on parallel.
A very good question. A very good question. The reason why it shows it is that it shows all the dependencies that are drawn into the minimal build root. It shows all the differences of all packages, right? So, and as I'm saying, because this was the first build and it failed, everything is there, right? So, I need to go back to the presentation. How do I do that? It doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Oh, it really froze completely. So we'll spend the rest of the presentation looking at Koshche. I hope you like it. This is Fedora 21 Alpha, by the way. It really froze completely. Can we switch over to the laptop? Yeah, we'll switch to another laptop. Sorry about that. So anyway, when I get the slides up again, I'll also tell you that we have like another project which is sort of different, and we call that Python 3 Nightly. The idea behind it is that we want to build the latest snapshots of Python 3 and some of its dependencies in Copr and create software collection out of it. Why we are doing that is that first, we want to be sure that our patches, like our downstream patches, still apply, and we want to know, like when something builds, when something makes the build fail, we want to know that the next day, right? So we're doing nightly rebuilds of Python 3 nightly snapshots, so we know pretty fast when the upstream has changed something, so that it like makes the tests fail on Fedora, or the patch doesn't, our downstream patch doesn't apply, or something like that. And another benefit of that is that you actually can now install Python 3.5, like the nightly build of Python 3.5 in software collection on top of your existing Fedora installation without actually messing with your system. And then you go like SCL enable Python 3.5 dash, and you have environment where Python 3 is Python 3.5. So every day, basically, you can experiment with the latest changes that landed in Python upstream just yesterday. Cool? Not good? Okay. Yeah, and the last thing that I should be talking about is Fedora Rebuild, which is a Perl tool that is used to bootstrap builds of Perl for Fedora when the new version of the interpret itself is released. I don't know that much about it, so I'll just refer you to the link, and if you want to know. I heard it's pretty cool tool, but I never really used it because I don't work on Perl. So yeah, that's about it. So now we're coming to documentation.
Hi, so I'm Petr Kováč. I'm a representative of the documentation, or I would say of documentation. Is that okay? Can you hear me? In the Environment and Stacks working group, we have a section on documentation in the PRD for the working group, when we pretty much highlighted some of the things or areas that we would love to see improved in Fedora, in the Fedora project going forward. So the IT number one is Fedora Wiki, which is nowadays used as general, let's say, space for content related to documentation, related to developers, end users, as well as system administrators. I think that many of you will agree with me when I say that it's very, very hard to manage that content, to categorize it properly. There is no way to tag the content. There is a search function which doesn't work, I think. That when you try to find something on the Fedora Wiki, you're probably gonna fail. So the problem is that a large number of wiki pages on Fedora Wiki are now outdated and unmaintained or semi outdated. So the idea that we talked about was to find a way how to get rid of the old content and at the same time improve the content we still care about, maybe interesting to developers. And also to find ways how to combine this content that is usable in Fedora with other areas of Fedora websites or let's say sites related to Fedora that can have content usable to developers. We have an official documentation website on docs.fpo, which now also have problems in terms of outdated platform, which is unsupported on the recent version of Fedora. So there is actually a documentation hackfest at 3 p.m. today. So if you are interested in discussing our current issues in Fedora documentation, you are welcome to attend. I would love to see some discussions related to developer documentation there as well. As historically, we've been providing mostly system administrator and end-user documentation on docs.fpo in the form of dogbook guides, and I think that in the future we would love to move to something else, to a different format that is easier to contribute to, that is more familiar to developers. So people propose to, I don't know, using Markdown or ASCII-Doc as an input format for writing documentation for Fedora. And there have been other ideas proposed. So it's not like we have a plan yet, but I think that if you developers or people interested in developer documentation for Fedora come to the Hackfest and discuss with the documentation writers what will be your ideas or vision for the future. of Fedora documentation or developer documentation, that will be great. So what we have now in terms of documentation is a software collections guide. It's a guide to build and create software collections, and it's also documented sources of packaging guidelines, source for the packaging guidelines. And then we have an outdated RPM book, RPM guide. There is a plan to create a new, I would say book, but let's say document on how to get started with RPM packaging. And I think we could develop much more, especially documentation for using the tools that people are now working on to support development on Fedora or for Fedora. So yeah, I think it's about what I would like to mention.
Okay, now it's my turn, and as you can see, we have a Docker here as well. It has to be there. I'm the most recent member of, I'm the newest member of the Environment and Stacks working group. We and one other guy joined just a few weeks ago to help with integrating Docker to working groups. I'm also a member of Base working group, where we work on Docker as well, or we try to do some work there. So you have seen, maybe you have seen 2 presentations here about Docker already. So I would say Docker is well supported in Fedora. Everybody's trying to be better than our competitors, let's say. So we are working on it. We have some semi-official image in the registry. You can download just Docker Cool Fedora. It's quite big. It doesn't have to be that big. We are working on it. I'm not sure, I think that we are already able to build Docker images in Koji, base images, and we have a Kickstart file for the much smaller image in Spin Kickstart Git repository. So we should have the real and official image in the registry hopefully soon. Yeah, and the base image will be maintained by base working group, but it's connected to all the working groups, and I think all of them will use them. So what else? We are looking at building layered images, because that's something users might benefit from. The base image is just a bunch of packages in tar file, basically, with some metadata. But if you want to use Docker, you need layered images. So how to do that? We hope to have support in Koji, because that would make most sense as it's official Fedora build system, but it's far away, we don't know. I've proposed some idea that we could build layered images in Copper from the Copper build. We'll see if that's going to happen. You can join this idea, you can comment, it's on Copper Devel mailing list. I would love to see any ideas you have about it. And there is OpenShift STI, which is source to image project, which should be able to build images which should then be able to be run in the future in OpenShift. So that's another part of what we should look into, or what we are looking into, because that can help developers to prepare the image on their machine or in Copper or in Koji, and they just hit the button and push it to OpenShift. If that would work like this, that would be great. And then there are some other things about Docker. Dev Assistant, which Slavin will be talking about in a minute, is supporting Docker, I think. Yeah, okay, great. And we hope to get other tools to support it as well. I've talked to Eclipse guys here on Flock, and they are interested in helping us with building, hopefully building Docker images, layered images in Eclipse from your project. We will see. And then we need to prepare the layered images with stacks, like, I don't know, Python, PHP, Java maybe. I don't know. There is a Fedora Docker files repository on GitHub. I didn't put there the link, but you can find it easily. Just Google it, and you'll find it. And there are a lot of examples, but they are not optimal. They are not. I don't know. Maybe they are not that useful as they might be. So we are going to review them and hopefully add some of them, or even make it available to you as layered images itself. And the question is, what do you want? If you are interested in Docker, or you have an idea what is it, or you want to know what is it, join our meeting, or hit our mailing list, or just talk to us and let us know what's your ideas about it, and what you would like to see in Docker images, or how you would like to use it in Fedora. And we will be happy to help you to achieve it. Yeah, that's all from me, and I will give it to Slava. Yeah.
So, if we had a Docker file that we wanted to submit, what's the path for that?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the GitHub. It's on GitHub, so probably the pull request would work. I think Colin Walters is maintaining the repository.
Scott Collier has one too.
Oh, yeah. No, that was Scott Collier. Yeah. Sorry. So I think it's Scott's repository. I would like to see it somehow merged with cloud, environment stacks, working groups, so that it's not just one person maintaining the repository. It should be the working group probably effort to have it, I don't know, stable, have it useful. So probably for now, pull request would work. Any other questions? Great.
Okay, me again. I won't be touching the computer. I don't want it to freeze. So, Dev Assistant. Who knows what Dev Assistant is? Right? Okay, cool. That's quite a lot of people. So, for those of you who don't know, Dev Assistant is supposed to be a tool for developers to help them kickstart new projects, work with source code management, so set up environment for existing projects, etc., etc. In the Fedora joint session that was before lunch, people were talking about how Fedora is really like a box of Lego bricks, just basic building blocks. So I hope that Dev Assistant will one day be the glue that will really tie these building blocks together and to help developers create their environments easily. So that is what Dev Assistant is and is supposed to be. What we have already done is that we have some support for Docker. It's really new in the current latest version, so we are still working on that, but it works pretty good as of now. We have assistants. Assistants are our name for like plugins that actually do the work, like setting up projects, kickstarting new files, etc. So we have for some assistants for C, Java, Python. I think we also have Ruby, maybe some PHP, and maybe even something more. I'm not sure at this point. Yeah, JS. Yeah, it's really so good. I've already had the talk about it, but you can still come hack on it this evening at 5 p.m. We're also still like collecting suggestions, ideas, and comments. So really feel free to come to the Hackfest, even if you just want to tell us something about the system, your impressions, anything. We'll be really grateful if you just talk to us about it. To-dos. We actually do have some integration with GitHub. So Copper can now, for example, create GitHub repos from command line or for GitHub projects from command line, which is quite useful. We're also thinking about, we actually already have like proof of concept for creating repository with the plugins, where people will be able to actually share the plugins very easily. So yeah, we have more plans. I've been talking about them this Friday morning, so just feel free to watch the video on YouTube to get more detailed information. Are there any questions about our system? Okay, no questions, so I'm giving it back to Honza.
Oh.
Yeah.
integrates with like Eclipse, or is it sets up a project? What's it? I mean, the GitHub side of things. What's it doing?
So the question is whether it integrates, whether the Java system integrates with Eclipse or what other things it can do basically. So the answer is that it depends on the specific plugin. For most of the plugins that we have right now, we do have Eclipse integration, as in Java systems can import your project in Eclipse and install like reasonable Eclipse plugins for that type of project. So, for example, it will install Eclipse PyDev if you work with, if it is a Python project, right? And it really depends on what the author of the plugin wants to put in. You can really do pretty much anything that is reasonably like doable either from command line or from Python bindings, which should do pretty much anything hopefully.
Okay.
Does that answer the question? Yes. Okay, thanks. More questions? Okay.
Okay, last topic, but at least, software collections are awesome. Nobody throws any tomatoes at me, so great. Software collections is a concept that is difficult because it's a great concept. It solves pretty much some issues that we couldn't solve before, but it still has some issues. That's actually the reason why we can't have software collections in the proper Fedora, for example, right now. Actually, I should probably describe what software collection is, because maybe there is someone who doesn't know. Software collections is a concept to build the RPM packages in a way that they don't conflict between the versions. So I can have I can build and install more versions of the same package or the same component on one machine, and then I can run a particular version using the SCL command, which actually changes the environment variables. This is the concept behind the runtime path. And this actually can solve quite a lot of problems in Fedora, because users want different versions of packages time to time. Sometimes it can be solved differently, sometimes it's really necessary. And the issues we have right now are pretty much, well, the guidelines. We are missing still guidelines for software collections. There are issues with naming the collections. There are issues with paths that are already solved, well, at least in our heads, but some implementation needs to be done on the side of the tool, of the SCL utils tool. It's still missing as far as I know. And then we need to solve the infrastructure questions, because the whole concept is a bit different than the concept of building proper packages, and I guess Copper could be a great answer for that. We can do changes much faster in Copper than, for example, in Koji. So I guess this is the way, and we need to, well, look at this further, and I hope and I believe that we will have some sort of software collections concept will be part of the Fedora very soon, but yeah, it needs still a lot of work. Okay, that actually was all that we had prepared, and now this is part for your question, and we also would like to ask to get more involved in the generally in the working group discussions. I guess whether you are in another working group or not, I would like to ask to follow the discussions, the meetings, and if you have anything you would like to hear. So, any particular questions about the topics? I can show the list.
Now, I just have a comment, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm an outsider, and I understand software collections from a RHEL perspective. New projects that don't quite make it into RHEL, that you know, they're turning too quickly. If I understand why you do collections here, it would be to sort of slow down projects, give them a chance to sort of mature a little bit before you pull them into Fedora, right? I mean, you want them somewhere close to Fedora, but not in your core, right? Don't reuse the name collections. Call it something else. Call it sandbox. Call it...
But you have the same problem in Fedora as you do in RHEL, right? Like Ruby 2, for example, didn't make it into Fedora, but people want to use it. Python 3. So, like, as far as I'm concerned, software collections are an indirection layer between the OS and the libraries that developers depend on. So, personally, I think it's you.
So then,
and in RHEL, you have the opposite problem as well, right? So you want Python, what is it, 2.4 or something in RHEL 4? Why couldn't you write a software collection for that on RHEL 7?
So then don't move things back and forth. Stick in one place, call it a software layer, let it mature at its own rate, and don't ever, I mean, because don't ever pull it in. Leave it as, you know, reorganize it, right?
But the intention is for these to live in collections, not to mature into the base.
Okay, so it's going to live there forever.
Yeah, for one reason, for example, is that there is no one version of Python or one version of Ruby that everybody wants. There are multiple different ones.
Right.
We've had broken Puppet in several releases of Fedora for a while because we haven't had the right version of Ruby there. And collections is not just a staging ground for things that aren't ready. It's explicitly, we're fully exploring software, the versions that we want to have, where it's not the version, it's the main version of the system.
Okay. And to also clarify, right, one of the things I was going to comment on, like, I'm not in love with the area of interest for environments and stacks being called software collections, because the solution to the problem is a method for providing essentially an unbreakable API layer for applications so that they can move independently of the OS, right? Software collections are one method of doing that. And, you know, there's been lots of proposals of what Stacks 2.0 would look like, or Software Collections 2.0 would look like. So the objective, I think, both for RHEL and Fedora is to provide that abstraction layer. This just happens to be an implementation.
Okay. Thanks.
No other questions or comments, requests? So thank you very much.